everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I wanted to talk to you real quick about things to do with negative reaping and what the world calls karma. I wanted to talk to you about that and some other things, so let's jump in. In regards to negative reaping, like I said, when you're connected to a narcissist and they're doing all this wicked stuff behind your back, the cheating, having love affairs, and making you a third party to a situation or triangulation, they're doing a lot of manipulations in the background and you're allowing it and you're in covenant with them. You get to reap their negative harvest. But what you have to understand, and what comes later after you kind of heal a little bit, you start to realize that the Almighty or God was protecting you. Because you disengaged with them when you did, you could have negatively reaped a whole lot more if you would have stayed in it longer. The negativity of the situation became much worse because the third parties, you could have been a secondary supply, or maybe you were a primary. They tried to convert to secondary supply because you refused to take all of that brutal punishment that you took as the primary. But for a time, you were maybe willing to see them, not that you thought it was a good idea, but maybe touch and go for a time. So they kind of made you a secondary source of supply, and maybe you wanted them then. But really, when you cut this thing off, or you cut it off early because you know what it's looking like in the future, and you know this person's not right for you, and you know that you're a catch and that you have options out there. Not that you make anybody an option, but when you've been made an option, you look at the situation for what it is. You start to look at it without the rose-colored glasses on anymore, let's be honest, right? You had some growth through all of the trauma and the betrayal, and it kind of wakes you up to looking at things for what they are, y'all. And when you look at it for what they are, what I'm getting at is it's a blessing that you got out of it when you did, because if you didn't, you would have got hurt worse. But you never know what could become violent. You're talking about if somebody was married, or if they were heavy, or somebody, whoever their counterpart was really heavy about the situation. There's a lot of people that will catch their counterpart cheating, and they're cheating maybe with somebody like you or like me, but we didn't know they were cheating. And that person can get violent upon the third party situation. Unbeknownst to the third party, they went into it legit thinking they were with a single individual that had opportunity. But what you find makes you back away out of it, back yourself out of it, is there's so many manipulations and so much insecurity and inconsistency, and you've caught them cheating. It gets to a point after you come out of primary supply, sometimes they have different time set for you. And generally speaking, you're okay with that because you don't really even want to be with the narcissist, but when they end up contacting you, you end up doing stupid stuff because you're kind of attached to them for a time, and you start to maybe have this couple of these small glimpses of time that you spend with them. But what I'm getting at is sometimes things can get violent, and it wouldn't have been known to you. Say they were cheating on somebody, and if that person felt some sort of way where they would take it to that level, they could have even caught you off guard. So it's really a true blessing. But even beyond that, just in a financial state, a health state, and the state of your psyche, because you have to keep, a lot of us don't have a lot of family around anymore because of the way they treated us. So we keep them to a distance. And a lot of us, like I said, before these situations, were kind of isolating ourselves, which isn't a good idea. We should have a support system, and we should work on that when we get out of a narcissistic situation. And we should work on cultivating good people in our life to be support and counsel for us. And we know that after, some of us. But that's what I preach on the channel, because that's truth. You need counsel, and you need good fellowship, friendship, and good godly people in your corner you can be with in time of need. And if some of these things were to, God forbid, arise again, you would have counseled. But the thing is you don't want to be with a narcissist as well, because what a narcissist brings to the table is, of course, they're cheating on you and lying to you, and there's a third party all the time. They could be married, they could be engaged, they could be dating several people. It doesn't matter. There's always somebody in the background, because there's always three people to the situation, is what you learn after, at least. And most of the time there's 4 or 5, the narcissist harem, where they just recycle around these people. But, you know, these things could get violent if somebody thinks they're in a heavy-duty situation, because you don't know what the narcissist has chosen to be with besides you, because they wear a mask. So they could be with you, and then they could be seeing also somebody who takes people out for a living, and then they could also be with a guy that works at the flower shop. You see what I'm saying? They're so eclectic that they go for anything, sometimes anything that would present itself to them. And if they are to a level to where they have some beauty to them, sometimes they are more picky and choosy. They are eclectic, and they pick people for random stuff. They could be with all these different types of people. They could be with a gangster and with somebody who works at a flower shop too. The guy who works at the flower shop might get picked off by the gangster because, unbeknownst to him, he's cheating, or his girl's cheating with you, and you don't even know. But it affects your finances, your work, everything, your relationship with God. And so because you cut it off early, a lot of times what you'll find is there's a lot of crap going on in the background that you could have been subject to, like heavy stuff. And there's a lot of repercussions for that stuff, and it's going down now. You don't want to be with a narcissist because what do they bring to the table? They don't bring any vulnerability. You want somebody that's going to bring vulnerability, accountability. They're going to be single, and they're going to have no restrictions on the relationship. And they're going to be able to have an open timeline to spend with you, to cultivate something with you. And the narcissist can't bring any of that. Anytime that you see ego, and even we had ego, so I'm touching on us as well. But what I've learned is anytime you see ego shows childhood injury. Some sort of injury, some sort of childhood injury that you still probably need to work through, because you're fronting, and you're fronting to protect an injury. You're overcompensating, and you're falsifying yourself to give the illusion that you are something else, something better than you believe you are. You're putting an illusion forward to protect the injury from childhood. And it was triggered through somebody around you that caused you to get an ego about those situations, or become that way in your ego state about those sometimes they're different things, which would be inferiority complexes, or things that people drove into your head when you were a child, made you believe, or it could be trauma. It's all trauma, though. I guess my point is, I don't really hear people talk about how ego has to do with, when you see people in ego, they're dealing with some sort of childhood injury that they never did deal with. So it comes out like that in its ego state and its ego form. And a lot of us have minute ones, and some of us have, like, the narcissist walks in it all day long because they don't heal anything. And that's how they kind of they say they don't experience love, but they don't experience love because to have love, you first have to be vulnerable, because it takes vulnerability to go inside and try to heal. But what does it take to be vulnerable? It takes courage to be vulnerable. So it takes strength to be what the world would call weakness. It takes courage to be vulnerable. So it takes strength to open up, you see, and to heal. But what the narcissist does is they let it drive them into fear, but we all have driven into fear. We just didn't let it take over. So they let fear take over, and then pride comes in and blocks it with ego. With pride. And pride is ego. Pride is your ego state. And just so you know, if you have a hard time understanding what gaslighting is, or another way of understanding gaslighting from a witchcraft state or a witchcraft state of mind, it would be to call it illusion. Gaslighting is for them to give you an illusion, which is to build a lie of some other way that it went down when it comes up. To build a lie, an illusion, to build a story. But this is like a spelling, because as heavy as it hits you, it almost feels real when it's a serious situation. And it's very confusing because of the illusion that's put forth. You should always judge everything on reciprocity. because nobody that is toxic can give you equal reciprocity. They're always negative reciprocity. And another thing is follow the state of confusion or the state of wholeness. If you're in a confusing state or a state of confusion, it's not good for you. It's not right for you. You need to walk away. It's that simple. But a lot of times when you decide or realize that you're in a situation that is abusive to you, you don't realize it until you're in the middle of it. And that's because we didn't pay attention to our intuition. And the red flags that hit us, we denied them because there's certain ways that they spell you through love bombing and building you up, getting you an ego, not knowing you can have an emotional state of mind that can take over your intellectual state of mind. And once they get you to do that in your ego state, you get emotional, you see. But in your intellectual state of mind, you do not show emotion. You have emotion, but they are not of concern to the situation because you're looking at it from an objective point of view. You can be vulnerable and have emotion, but you're not going to be that way up front. You will only be like that with vulnerable people that are in your circle in the future. It's people that you can vet. So you're going to show a lot more objectiveness. And a lot of times objectiveness can be, I don't know who you are, so I have to look at you from my intellectual state of mind and with, no real emotional state. You don't drop to your emotional thinking. But a lot of times, so in a state of a wholesome individual, you're going to be in tune with them. Your intellectual state and your emotional state of mind are both going to be in tune. So that's kind of going to be okay. And it's going to be in line with your intuition as well. So this is for like your love partner situation. You're going to know it's good to be with them and it's okay to be vulnerable with them because everything is going to be directed together in one accord, just like it says in the word, in one accord. Everything is in tune, meaning it has the same vibration, it has the same sound. But when you're with a narcissist, you have your intellect telling you no, and your intuition telling you no, and your heart, when you get into ego, is your prideful state, your false self. Like when they build you up on the pedestal, they put you in your false self, and then they get you chasing them when they devalue and discard you because that's your false self as well. So you stay in your false self until you get in some trauma that makes you decide that you can't do this anymore. So anyway, that's what I have for you. If you can give me a like, subscription, and a thumbs up. Till next time, Soulja, peace, we out.